Welcome back to KSP Breaking Ground, and today I thought we'd start with a little mission. We got a couple of missions actually, just to do some satellites, but I was just wondering whether we could actually do them both with the same satellite. One is to put something around orbit around Kerbin, the other one is to do it around the moon, and yes, you'll see you have to have a mystery goo unit and a materials bay, well, for each mission, but we've got both on one. I've only got about 2,000 Delta V remaining though, so I may not have enough. However, I have already passed, just by doing a couple of missions, the 950,000 we need for the upgrade. So anything we get here is just a bonus on building our first rockets beyond that upgrade of our R&D, that is, if you've been watching previous episodes, which you should have, hopefully. So here's our first orbit. Relatively easy, straightforward thing to do, as long as we're actually in contact, that is, with the ground. And that's the major problem, because this is unmanned and I don't have a satellite network yet, so yeah, we have to be a little bit careful about what we do. So if we want to push one side of our orbit out, then let's just create a maneuver at the other side, and hopefully we are in contact at that particular point. So add a maneuver, and we're just going to push this side out, and let's see how much Delta V that's actually going to take. Wow, that actually might take more Delta V than I was expecting. So that's 655. Okay, and we probably want to move this around a little bit and just get that roughly lined up, and we'll just push that out a little bit more. The further out you get, of course, the less Delta V you actually need to get out there. So let's just push that into place. And so that's about 678, so that is pretty much going to be all this first stage doing that. So let's just execute that node while that happens. Then we need to push the other side of the orbit out as well to get to this roughly, well, quite a high orbit as far as Kerbin's concerned. However, the other mission is for the moon. So once we get out that far, to get into the moon won't be that much more Delta V, to be honest. We just need to plot it at the right particular point. Then, of course, we'll have to come into a particular orbit, but, you know, we'll give it a try. Let's get going with this maneuver first of all. So we are still in contact, which is good. And are we approaching the right time? Yeah, here we come around. Oh, out of contact, in contact. And we'll actually be over the Kerbal Space Center when this happens, which is good. We should be able to get it done then. So it's approaching, and we'll let Jeb actually take that maneuver while we think about the next one. We are going to be slightly off the inclination here, but we can correct that fairly easily once we're even halfway out. But I'm not even going to concern too much about inclination. We're roughly right. We're within a couple of degrees. That should be enough for most missions. And out goes our first maneuver. So I'll see you once we're out on the other side. We're obviously going to circularize, and let's see how much. Well, not circularize. It's actually not that far on this side of the orbit. So we're going to see how much fuel it's going to take for the next maneuver. Here we go, next maneuver up. It takes 282, yep, much less effort to actually get our orbit further out this direction, and hopefully that should fulfill the first mission. So that's this one down here. They reach about 80 to 100,000 credits per mission, so move the maneuver plan out of the way, need a material bay, maintain stability, and reach the designated orbit. So you'll see this orbit is very much non-elliptical, non-circular. It's definitely elliptical. And are you going to be enough, or am I going to need to make another correction? I may have to make a slight correction. It may not actually count. Yeah, it's looking like it's not going to count. So we just need to alter this orbit very, very slightly. And that is, if we just zoom in, you'll see our inclination of this orbit is just slightly off. So we just need to choose either the ascending node or descending node. Since we are going around this way, then we should probably choose this node right here, the ascending node. And we can add a maneuver and just adjust the, let's just go to the maneuver node editor over here. It's easier to see this than anything else. And we're just going to shunt this orbit down just a touch. So we want to just go normal or anti-normal, whichever one actually makes the most. There we go, wrong direction. I always get it the wrong direction. There we go. And that should bring us into line with the other orbit. So execute next node. It's only 17 meters per second, and we have 1152 left. So that's going to mean we have about 1100 meters per second to play with to try and get out to the moon. And yes, maybe our orbit needs a bit more change because it's slightly off here as well in terms of distance. But it's only a little bit of change now to actually get the first mission done. And that's done. Great. We got another, well, 1,054,000. Let's see if we can stack up any more. We have 2 more missions. One is science data from space around the moon, so we'll be able to do that pretty easily once we get out there. The existing craft that's out there, one's got a used bio container. Can't use that, unfortunately. Can't transmit anything from that. And the thermometer, unfortunately, is on the thing that's on the surface of the moon, and this needs to be space around the moon, it says. So, well, we'll have to do that another way. So there's the moon. We'll set that as a target, and let's see if we can actually just plan a home and transfer, create a node from where we currently are, and you'll see it goes crazy all over the place. It just basically plots an intercept maneuver, so we will hit the surface if we don't not careful there. It will take 282, but we are going to first of all just move onto a focus view, and then let us just refine this a little bit more. So let's bring our maneuver node out, and let's bring ourselves this way. So retrograde. And you'll see we have this quite weird orbit going around. Remember that we're going to be approaching this quite, what's the right word? Tangential, if you like, to the orbit. It's not going to be going straight at it, so we're going to loop around this if we're not careful. Now, the orbit we need to get to is this one, this purple line. And that is running... it's running from the bottom of the moon up over the top. So we want to adjust our orbit around a little bit until we get to the point, whoops, we get to the point, let's just bring the scale down, that we can get it below the moon as far as that's concerned. So let's just increase that a little bit until it's sort of on an impact, so close in, and that should make the most change. Anywhere around here is fine, because what we're going to be doing is halfway out we'll then be able to adjust it, and it doesn't really much matter if it's around here or not. So that's fine. 266, which is lower delta V. We can execute that next node, and then we'll make a short correction once we've got this first burn done. So join me for that. And there we go, our orbit's set. So we're going to start the maneuver about halfway around, and this hopefully should not need very much delta V at all. To adjust everything around. We may have to adjust the sort of rotation, if you like, of this, because we're not anywhere near sort of 90 degrees to each other as far as that's concerned, so we'll have to adjust that. But let's just adjust things a little bit around here. Let's bring things in, maybe? Let's bring them in. Yeah. And then let's try and adjust things around. We want to go the other way. We want to head in along the bottom of the moon, and ideally just get to sort of right crossing around about there at the bottom. So I'll just make a few more adjustments. And around we come, and I'm not really going to tailor it back to the original orbit. All I really want to do is just rotate this in place while I can. Spend about 80 delta V out here, not very much at all. And then by the time we're around the moon, hopefully this thing will let us still be in contact with Kerbin even while we're near the periapsis. If that's not the case, however, all we're going to do is burn early. So we'll burn down here somewhere and actually close our orbit so that we don't go and fly off all over the place. So that is pretty good there. So I'm just going to go, and I'm not going to plan another maneuver. I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. Not too much, but fast forward a little bit. And it does look like we'll be in contact. You see it right there? And that's where we're going to be coming in up over the top. So that's enough now to be able to just close our orbit at this particular point, add a maneuver, and just break a touch. Okay, just enough to get us a closed loop, and we can execute that one. And that's only 8 meters per second, which should leave us with pretty much 780 meters per second to try and match this new orbit. More importantly, however, we'll be in space around the moon, so we can also get this other mission done, transfer scientific data. And here I've brought in the orbit a little bit more, and then we've done this final maneuver which just shifts us around. It's a combination of some normal, some radial, and a little bit of retrograde. So you can see mostly normal, a little bit of retrograde, and a little bit of radial. Okay, so that should be ready to go, and that's 163, which will leave us with about 400 or so remaining. And this, I think we started with around 5.6 from launch. So yeah, it's actually pretty good in terms of spend. You spend around 16,000 and you get pretty much 250, 300,000. So yeah, just to recap, one satellite in a specific orbit of Kerbin. As long as it's in the same direction as the way the moon's going, then you're probably fine. Even if not, you can do it another way. And then position, obviously, a satellite in polar orbit of the moon. Once you're obviously around a large orbit around Kerbin, you have quite a lot of leeway to get our way out to the moon. And here we come. This should start burning now. Yeah. Hopefully should get that right. There it comes. And stop. It's going to become more precise than we actually need to, but I quite like the idea of being exactly where it's asking us to. And done. And there we go. We have everything we need. Maintain stability for 10 seconds. And while that's happening, let's get the other mission done, which is if we scroll in here, you'll see what we're rotating. All we need to do is just grab, if we have a thermometer on board, yes we do, log the temperature and transmit it. And you'll see I've got a long range antenna. Not that we need it in this particular case, but I thought I would have it on the craft. And I'm just going to extend the antenna anyway. Just leave it like that, I think. And I don't think that should have any problems. How much is that actually going to deal with losses due to power? No, that's going to be fine. Okay, good. And of course we have a bio container if we ever need that. And of course a materials bay. So 3 different experiments on the one craft, because we needed the materials bay for the other mission. Otherwise it would have been a lot simpler. So that's 3 missions, 1 flight. I like those odds. Well, odds. Like those solutions. Back to the Space Center. And now we should be able to buy the R&D upgrade. Really big upgrade. Lots of nodes, lots of things we can actually get with it. So up we go. Oh, and it's 902,000. I think that's come down in price. I'm not sure why. Maybe someone else can say. But now we can collect surface samples and we can transfer resources around, and the limit is now up to 500. So you'll see over here, we have lots of nodes we can go for. Unfortunately, only 174 science. So we have to choose just one node to get started with. The node I'm going to take first is this one, Advanced Exploration. It's down here. It has the mobile processing lab. Downside, I don't have a payload bay that can actually contain this thing. So it would have to be part of a rocket itself. And I'm not sure that's going to be too wise. However, I definitely want this node, so I'm just going to have to take that. And in fact, I'm even going to buy that just to make sure I have it more than anything else. So why don't we get a look into sort of crafting the next sort of size of rocket up? We're going to need that mobile processing bay anyway, so let's just start off with an entirely new rocket and take a look at what we can do. Now, we don't have the cupola module yet, unfortunately, so we're going to have to start with some other modules. We don't have the hex yet, so if something goes up, it's going to have to be, I don't know, maybe like a lander cannon or maybe something like that. We'll leave that alone for now, and let's just assume that's the case. We're also going to need a larger fuel tank. Now, we do have the start of the X200 series of fuel tanks, so we're going to buy some of those. And you'll see those are quite large by comparison. And if we just look at the science for a second and take a look at the mobile processing bay, you'll see it's roughly the size of the fuel tank. So if we had something going up there, then we could have it like this. Now, let's take a look at the Poodle engine, because that's the right size for this particular size of fuel tank. That's the Terrier. Whoops. Poodle would be there. Lots of expenditure we may need to get back, but let's take a look at the stats on this thing. So sea level thrust is 0.27. Blah, terrible. However, in orbit, it is 1, which is good enough to do pretty much anything with the moon and Minmus. We also have, in vacuum, with that size fuel tank, 3,797. The problem will largely be getting that size fuel tank up off the ground. So I'm just going for now, going to change across to the smaller version. Maybe the 16 actually. Yeah. I've got the 8 as well, but let's leave that alone for now. And can we actually even get anything that is aerodynamic on this thing at all? We have advanced nose cone. That's we may have to try that. I'm interested in trying it. How about a larger nose cone? Is that a larger nose cone? That is a larger nose cone. Look at that. So technically, we could fly this thing with that nose cone in place if we had some weird manned flight. That's going to be an interesting one. The lander can is actually the easiest way to deal with that because it's lighter than the other options that we have. I don't think there's anything else. We could go unmanned, but then that will be a little bit dangerous for this. So yeah, I would like that manned. So let's just sink the manned section inside a nose cone, just like a capsule. However, whoever goes in there is not going to easily get back out again. I don't think we can fly this without that because it isn't a route path or anything. Can we reroute it along to this part? It will let us do that. Will we be able to fly it though if we did that? Never tried it without a pod. Anyway, I guess this is a mobile lab in more ways than one. We'll obviously put a pod back on if that's not the case. In fact, it's got some problems here. It's not showing me the stats anymore because we don't see a pod. Why don't I just put something light on, like, I don't know, maybe an unmanned thing, and we'll have maybe Jeb fly it. Just for now. There we go. Okay, so 2,739, which would be more than adequate for something in orbit, even to get over to another moon. So below that, we may not even have separation technology, and that's going to be more of a problem to actually get rid of the previous stage of the rockets. So let's take a look at coupling. Do we have a 2.5 meter? TS12, TS25. Yes, we do have a 2.5 meter. There we go. Now let's just change the. Oh, actually, we've only got this or orange. I'll go for the orange. Quite like the space station. The booster stage from the space shuttle. Okay, and then well, unfortunately we've got to make up the rest of the fuel tanks with these, and this is going to be quite a few of them. So let's just get 4. This is becoming obviously a much larger rocket than we're used to. And then our engines, we've only got one choice. We don't have the mainsail yet, which means we need the skipper. And that's depleting our funds, but we can put this on the bottom. At this point, we shouldn't need fins anymore. We should be able to control this with by putting in either inline sort of stabilizers. However, we don't have anything that is large for that yet, or we can deal with it with RCS tanks. So if we did RCS tanks, I'm not even sure we actually have a large RCS tank, so that's going to be interesting. We can see we can run a simulation, inverted quote marks, and see how well it does with just gimbaling. However, I'm sure the skipper doesn't. Oh, it only has a 2-degree vectoring range. Yeah. So the mainsail is much better at it than that. However, with just those 2 stages, we get ourselves up to 3,400 for the bottom stage, but it can't take off. So it's just not powerful enough to take off. So let's try it with 3. Are you powerful enough to take off yet? 0.81, you are not. So we're going to need at least another set of boosters to get this thing off the ground. Even once it gets to higher up, it's not going to be powerful enough. So what happens with just 2 tanks? Okay, now it can take off, and now it can accelerate away just fine, but it's just down to the weight of this mobile processing lab. The mainsail is a much better option for this, but we can't afford it yet. We need more science. So this may have to do. It will get us, technically, 5,500 delta V, and it should get us most of the way towards orbit. But even so, on the pad, it's only just above 1 thrust to weight ratio, which means, unfortunately, it won't take off very fast and it'll be very, very wasteful. So we are going to want boosters no matter what. Now, there are a couple of options for boosters, and I'm spending more money. This, which is more appropriate to this size, or we have the thumper. Oh, and that looks tiny, but at the same time, it also may be better to go with something that size, because this just seems a little bit too big for that. We want it to be roughly the size of the first stage, not into the second stage, if that makes sense. So we need to get probably the large hydraulic detachment manifold. I'm going to go into single mode. Someone did ask in a comment, why do I have them in single mode like this? It just makes it easier for me to then grab them and then duplicate the nodes up in a little while. So let's just put in the aerodynamics. So we want the nose cone type A. There we go. And are you symmetric around this? I wish they would improve this system. I always manage to get this slightly wrong. And if they would just snap into place at 90 degrees, I've never seen any need for any side booster to be anything other than 90 degrees on to the outside of one of these things. If someone does know a way or a reason for that, let me know. But I don't know of any reason for that. So let's actually get 2 of these. And that should do. Let's take a look. We can... we're going to need to... Why is that not... Is that saying it's not detached? Not attached even? No. Both of you are going to go and fire at the same time. Then you're going to separate. This is going to carry on. Then you're going to separate. So the starting stage near the ground is now going to be up to 1.56. And that should be enough. It's a little bit low, but it's a large rocket. So we'll see. And it takes us up to nearly 6,000 meters per second. So why don't we give this a try? Simulation. And let's see how well this does in practice. So we're just going to send Val. And if she can pilot it from there, that would be great. And we are just going to also potentially send Bob. Bob likes just you know, coming along for the ride. We are probably going to need more scientists as a whole in there, and we should probably at some stage have an extra module. That's normally what I use the Kubo module for, but we don't have it right now because I think you need 2 scientists in here. However, we'll send one and send another one up later if we need to. What I'd also like to do is a bit of a difference up here. What I'd like to do is to be able to clear this upper area because we're going to want to dock with it later, I think. And that means I probably want to put in a docking port. I don't have a senior docking port, unfortunately, which is slightly problematic. But if we take a second one, flip it upside down, we can put it that way. Okay. And then I'm going to put this back in place. And then what I want to do is just go to actions. And then we don't really have other than, well, too many other actions, but let's just go for that module. And activation? Is it activation or what's what? Undock. I would presume activation is undock. That is new, actually. That's probably part of the new breaking ground stuff. Okay. So let's give that a try. Put this in place. And hopefully then we'll be able to get rid of this upper stage once everything comes off. So let's just offset this back down again. Gives a little bit better control. That'll do fine. I don't want any sort of clipping to go on with that top stage. So this whole top section now is basically something we can lose. And we don't have any RCS, so we're going to have to try that out. But just so they have some stuff on board, I'm just going to attach a thermometer in here. Whoops, just one. And a barometer. A couple of mystery gears, in fact. Let's just put those... not necessarily I want them on top, but I guess we could. Right there. Yeah, that will do. And then let's just put a barometer on there. I really don't have room for anything else. I could try and hide this science junior underneath here again, but we're going to undock it, so that's something we can wait for. Just so we've got a couple of experiments at least to try with. And this one, with this scanning arm, came with that node we just purchased with the lab. So this is a scanning arm. I think it's intended for, yeah, it's intended for surface features and to be attached to a rover. We're not there yet, so I'm not going to buy it just yet, but once we get to rovers, we'll start using that. All right, so let's call this 2.5 meter lab launcher for now. And let's see how or if it flies. And here we are on the way up. We've just lost the boosters from either side. They've got us off the pad. You'll see our speed's increasing. Not very fast yet, but we are going to be going straight up still because we want to minimize the amount of time we spend in the lower atmosphere. I need to keep an eye on this area as well because it can get unstable as we get towards the speed of sound if we're too low when that happens. However, I did change a couple of other things around. I added some solar panels, I added some batteries, and we also have a few more changes. I moved the command pod down in between the fuel tank and the lab because you definitely do need a command pod. Even if you have a pilot on board, they need something to actually pilot. Oh, it's becoming unstable right now. They need to add something to actually pilot, which in this case is basically either the pod, which we're not using, or an unmanned computer of some kind. Otherwise, there's no control. Fine, so we are heading up towards 400 meters per second now, and we are going to start to tilt over. Our APO is still around 33. We need to make sure we keep control. This is not particularly stable. I think we do need to add RCS at some point soon to control this, or indeed the main cell, which has a larger vectoring range. So I'm going to start tipping over far, far later than I would, and we'll get our APO up towards around 80 to 90 kilometers, give us plenty of room to maneuver in orbit, and plenty of room to come back again with other craft to refill with 2 scientists, if indeed we need 2 scientists. I can't remember, so let's just fly it as is for now. So our APO is coming up to 71, 72. Let's start tipping over. We should be perfectly fine here. And 80, and going over towards 85. And there is 90. So at this point, well, we don't have much control. We need to actually run the engines to be able to repoint ourselves around. And unfortunately, we're heading right towards the sun, so it makes it quite hard to actually see the rest of the rocket. But let's tilt ourselves over and get ourselves roughly right. We're still going up on the apoapsis side, and we'll just tell it to create a node for circularization. And we'll get ourselves pointed to that maneuver node, and we have burn time. Unfortunately, I don't think that burn time's perfectly right yet. Let me just actually get to here. There we go. So burn time is 2 minutes, and that red zone is the area that we will need to use the next stage up to actually do. So I'll get ourselves stabilized, get ourselves into orbit, and then we'll do a couple of other things. We are above the atmosphere now, so the other thing that we can do is, if we're going, we can just undock this nose cone. So let's just choose you, decouple node, and away that'll float away. And we can then, whoops, yeah, we're docked again. Clearly I didn't mean to do that. We need to wait for it to actually float away before we do anything. Can I undock? Please let me undock. Why can't I undock? Can I not just undock from the other side, maybe? Undock. Yeah, there we go. So we have to wait for that to float away, then we can get the maneuver node. And unfortunately, our burn time is pretty soon now. In fact, probably already passed. So I want to miss and get this orbit done. And yes, we did make it all the way up into orbit. So we're up here now, and we have a docking port ready to receive another craft. The other craft is probably going to contain more science, as much as we can actually get up here into orbit, and another craft to bring up extra staff. And then we'll be able to use this 1500 meters per second to get this somewhere else. So we already know we can get out to the moon with that, and indeed to Minmus. So if we want to send a couple of scientists off to those places, well, as long as we fly it with some means for them to fly, or at least some means for them to take control, they should be fine. That may mean we have to fly unmanned effectively, because there'll be no pilot once we actually add 2 scientists to this. But it'll still work. However, the second craft we're going to bring up here is going to contain probably a couple of materials bays, maybe some crew quarters, something along those kind of lines, and we'll merge them in orbit. Maybe try a refill if we can actually send a refill, sort of fuel through this. I hope we can, but it's been a while since I actually did it, so I need to go and check. And, you know, little bits and pieces. Otherwise, the science experiments that are on here right now, they don't really have much in the way of benefit. We already have most of the science from here. So although I've taken some data in, I have, I think it's just the, what was it now? Just the biocontainer had a little bit of science that we can actually process in the lab. But yeah, we don't need to worry about it just yet until we get the next craft up here. So we have a lab in space. It's sort of the basis of a space station, although I don't think we have any space station missions just yet. So let's go back to the Space Center. And again, we'll leave Val in orbit. I seem to be leaving her up there no matter what, it seems. And here we are, build a new orbital station around Minmus. Not that I've been anticipating these missions or anything, but first of all, science data from surface of the moon. I do want that because I have something on the surface of the moon, so I'll just take that regardless. Plankton flag on Minmus again, and I probably should take that. Yeah, we'll take that. That's easy enough to do. But orbital station around Minmus. Is there any others? No. Okay, so we need to have 4,000 liquid fuel units in the station. It needs to support at least 6 Kerbals. Now, right now, ours only supports 2, remember. We'd have to dock something else with it and take it out to Minmus. So I'm not sure if we want to do that until we get one of the other nodes. The other nodes, things like the cupola, the hitchhiker module, stuff like that, you can get on to actually build a much larger station. And in fact, you can build them in orbit and then send them out there. And then, of course, it has to be in orbit around Minmus. But you do get like 300,000 for that, so there's plenty of reward. But we're not quite ready for that yet. Next episode, we'll build another craft, go up there, rendezvous, maybe switch a couple of people around so there's scientists on board, and we'll see if we can get them out there towards Minmus. And, well, we'll see how that goes. Now, of course, this mission does say this must be a new station built for integrated integrals after the contract is accepted. So the current one won't do for this anyway, but it's a little bit harder to actually assemble everything. So we may as well wait for a few more modules before we do space stations. Otherwise, we're pretty much ready to go. We're back down to 182,000, but we have basically an orbital space station at this point. It's not a great one. The great ones will come later. But for this one, it's getting good in orbit. So hope you enjoyed this episode. Triple mission single flight started the episode. Now we've got our first basic space station in orbit. And next episode, we'll do some more rendezvous and transfer stuff. Hope you'll join me for that. Click on the bell if you want notifications for those episodes when they come out. Also, feel free to click, type in some comments to other people playing through with advice on any changes you want to see from what you've seen today. Obviously, a stabler craft would help, but we've got to get some more RCS tanks for that, I think. Otherwise, subscribe, share as you normally would, and as always, guys, thanks for watching.